Last night, we saw another Democratic presidential debate, and just like all the other debates, afterwards, political commentators and pundits took to the airwaves and social media to declare that Donald Trump was the real winner. And they often do this because on the debate stage, you can see that Democrats are embracing fringe positions, far left positions that most Americans do not agree with. They are trapped in an echo chamber. The ramifications of this are pretty shocking. Many people are quitting the Democratic Party, and it's reflected in Trump's approval rating. Gallup has Trump at +1. It's just one of the first times a poll that isn't Rasmussen has Trump at a positive approval rating. But in the aggregate, Donald Trump's approval rating has reached an all-time high, tying with his highest ever at 46%, and that was just after he was inaugurated. We're now several years into his presidency, and it is the highest it has ever been. More shocking to me was Emerson having Trump at +4. There's one big reason why this shift is happening. People are quitting the Democratic Party, identifying as Republicans, and so are independent voters. The echo chamber of the left is falling apart, and people are starting to embrace Donald Trump because, look, the economy is just too good. Many people believe it is better than ever. But the other reality is there are no centrist Democrats. And as I've explained many times, given the opportunity or given the only choice between far left fringe ideology and Donald Trump, the average voter in this country is closer to someone on their right like Trump to the Republican Party than they are to the far left. Now it's all falling apart for Democrats. We already saw the videos. You may have seen the story when Nancy Pelosi tore up Donald Trump's State of the Union speech. Democrats were calling into C-SPAN outraged, saying they were quitting the party. The data is in. Gallup has Trump +1 partly because 4% over the past 4 surveys have switched to the Republican Party. To me, that is insane. Let's take a look at what's going on and try and figure out why people are quitting. A lifelong Democrat of 20 years wrote an op-ed explaining why she was leaving and explaining how she feels the Democratic Party is so out of touch. They are in for a massive failure come November. The first story we have from Gallup, Trump job approval steady at 49%. Before we read this, head over to timcast.com/donate. If you'd like to support my work, there are several ways you can give. The best thing you can do, share this video. You know, I like to crack some echo chambers, and I'm going to show you an article from a former Democrat who says the Democrats are trapped in an echo chamber. Hopefully, by sharing this video, some people who might not normally see these ideas will get access to them, and it may help them break out of that echo chamber. But I also noticed many of you don't subscribe. So if you do like these videos and you want to see more, please consider subscribing to this channel. Hit the notification bell. Let's dive in. Gallup says President Donald Trump's approval remains elevated at 49% in the latest Gallup poll, the same as in the previous poll, and up 5 points from an early January poll conducted before Trump was acquitted by the Senate in his impeachment trial. As in the prior poll conducted January 16 to 29, the approval rating from the February 3rd to 16 poll reflects record polarization for a single Gallup poll, with 87 percentage points separating ratings of Republicans and Democrats. 43% of independents approve of Trump, the highest rating for him among the group to date. Now, here's what's interesting. You may see that among Democrats, his approval rating is actually down. However, many people are no longer identifying as Democrats. They've quit the party. So this is one of the reasons we're seeing polarization, not because there are Democrats that don't like Trump, but because the people that used to be Democrats who do like Trump have completely quit and no longer call themselves Democrats. Gallup points this out. They say one of the reasons why this is happening, possible explanations. Trump's approval rating may be higher because of the Senate's acquitting him in the impeachment trial. Bill Clinton's job approval ratings also were higher, spanning the time between his impeachment in late 98 and his acquittal in early 99. Americans' generally positive and improved perceptions of the state of the nation are also a likely contributing factor. These factors may be driving Republicans and independents' ratings of Trump higher, but not Democrats. However, they say Gallup has observed an increase in the percentage of Americans identifying as Republicans, 32% in the past 2 surveys, up from 28% in the prior 2 surveys, along with a decline in the percentage identifying as independents, 41% down from 43%, and Democrats, 27% down from 28. People are quitting the Democratic Party, or they're no longer identifying as Democrats. They are now identifying as Republicans. That's the walk away campaign. I started thinking about this phenomenon. You may be familiar with Brandon Straka and his walk away campaign. He was a New York hairstylist who pointed out that he was seeing all of this insanity on the left and he didn't want to be involved anymore. And now he's a big Trump supporter, but he's got hundreds of thousands of followers. They've been accused of all the worst things in the book, and we'll go over that. But before we move on, I wanted to point this out. Can you think of high-profile personalities of cultural merit who have quit the Republican Party? There's a few. There are some Republicans who are never Trumpers who now go on CNN all the time to rag on the orange man. But is there a mass movement like walk away from the right? There isn't. Why is it that we see high-profile personalities like Dave Rubin say I'm leaving the left, or a campaign called Walk Away where people leave the left? And if you want to argue that it's actually Trump who's nuts, why is it that people are no longer identifying as independent or Democrat and more people identify as Republican? It's because the movement is away from the left. The way I explained it, politics only flows in one direction, at least today. If you take a photograph with someone on the left, let's say you're a regular person. You take a picture with someone who's a leftist, no one will say anything. If you take a picture with someone who's conservative, they'll accuse you of being a conservative too. There's no circumstance where a conservative takes a photo with someone on the left and they accuse the conservative of being on the left. They're actively pushing all of us away. Many people have openly embraced it. Jack Murphy, for instance, wrote a book called Democrat to Deplorable. 9.4 million Obama voters switched to Trump, and the phenomena continues to this day. Now, I want to show you the aggregate of Donald Trump's approval rating before we jump into the op-ed from a woman who used to be a Democrat to explain why this is happening. We can see that, as I mentioned, Gallup has Trump +1, Emerson has him +4, and this is the highest for Trump it's ever been. But notably was a massive drop in Trump's disapproval rating, which I found really interesting. There is not a one-for-one correlation between disapproval and approval. Often people might disapprove of Trump more than people actually approve because there's a decent amount of people who say, I just don't know. But with this disapproval dropping, that means you have a decent amount of people who have moved from hating Trump to either being ambivalent, not knowing, or actually supporting him. That's massive. Now, this story went viral. It's a Medium post by a woman named Karlin Borisenko. I have no idea who that is. But this got a ton of traction. Tons of people have covered this, and it's a really good example. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but she does make some interesting points. She writes, after attending a Trump rally, I realized Democrats are not ready for 2020. I've been a Democrat for 20 years, but this experience made me realize how out of touch my party is with the country at large. I have been to dozens of Donald Trump rallies. In the 2016 campaign cycle, I was covering many of these rallies, just generally hanging out. I did not see, for the most part, any hatred or vile behavior. Now, there was some booing and people didn't like the media. That's normal. I'm not super concerned about that. But the important thing that many people who are out of touch don't realize is that Donald Trump rallies are fun. That's just a sad reality. If you don't like the guy, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's the truth. People wait in long lines to see this man because he's funny. He's offensive. He makes jokes. He's self-deprecating. And when you're standing there watching him, it's a good time. People love going there. I remember seeing one line that spanned presumably a mile or two. It was a ridiculous line. And I'm like, there's no way we're going to wait in this line to get into the rally. So we went to the front and we were like, we're press. Can we cover this? And yeah, press gets special access. Karlin writes, and I'm just going to jump to two key points. First, she says this. The biggest question of all, did I hate Trump so much that I wanted to see my country fail just to spite him and everyone who voted for him? Of course not. But this woman says that she basically had Trump derangement syndrome. She hated the guy. Now, I think there's a fair middle ground where you can accept not liking Donald Trump, but you don't got to be crazy. And that's an important point. And I've said it from the get-go. You've got a pilot flying the plane. You don't like him because he's got a bad attitude. Why would you sabotage the flight? Let him land the plane and then figure it out after that, the fact. But of course, the economy is doing really, really well. And for the most part, people are absolutely going to choose the crass, boorish old man who makes the country work for them, as opposed to these weird far left ideologues. I think in the end, one of the most difficult positions for many Americans is that while many do not like the attitude of Trump, you're not being presented a fair alternative. You're looking at kind of a traditional moderate Republican type person in Trump who's got a bad attitude you don't like. And then when you look to your left, you don't even see the Democratic Party anymore. They're so far left, you can't even see where they're at. At the end of this Medium post, Carlin says, I think the Democrats have an A kicking coming to them in November. And I think most of them will be utterly shocked when it happens because they're existing in an echo chamber that is not reflective of the broader reality. I hope it's a wake-up call that causes them to take a long look in the mirror and really ask themselves how they got here. Maybe then they'll start listening. I tend to doubt it, but I can hope. Man, I have been right there for a long time. I don't want to be super political in terms of who I think is the best. You guys know that I was a big fan of Yang and Tulsi. Trump is not that bad. He's not my choice, but I'm not crazy. And she's right. The Democrats are going to get trounced because they're stuck in the Trump derangement syndrome echo chamber. The walk away campaign has been smeared left and right. Of course, it's the only thing they can do. When you have massive amounts of people quitting the Democratic Party, as I've already shown you, the Gallup poll shows it, and we all know about the story from the C-SPAN callers after Pelosi ripped up the speech, it is happening. This is a viral Medium post explaining why this woman quit. However, if you go to the walkaway campaign Wikipedia page, they say news sources have debated the extent to which walkaway is an example of astroturfing rather than a genuine grassroots movement. David A. Love of CNN condemned the campaign as pure propaganda, a psychological operation, and connected to Kremlin-linked Russian bots. The Washington Post claimed there's little actual evidence to suggest that walkaway represents a mass conversion of millions or even thousands of Democrats, contrasted the broad appeal of true viral videos with the conservative internet viral nature of the walkaway video. Think Progress characterized the campaign as a grifting operation, noting efforts by the organizers to sell dinner packages priced in the hundreds of dollars to March attendees. Slate accused the founder of presenting royalty-free stock images from Shutterstock and claiming they were people who had left the Democratic Party. Strzok has denied that any such material originated from the walkaway campaign. You know why I think this controversy section is funny? Like I mentioned earlier, we're hearing the stories from people who quit. We're listening to the C-SPAN callers. I mean, you really got to hear those callers. It is crazy. One guy's like, I've been a Democrat for 70 years, no more. Pelosi has embarrassed us. This is shocking behavior. But how are you going to deny Gallup? They say maybe it's not even thousands. 1%. If we try to look at what Gallup is claiming in these polls and say the sample size and the poll is representative of this country, we're talking about millions of people who have quit the Democratic Party. 1%. I know it's 1%. It's not a big deal. But we have 330 million people in this country. We have around, I think, 180 or 200. I don't know the exact number, how many are voting age. But 1% of people who are likely voters, that could be in the millions, at least hundreds of thousands. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and believe the data from Gallup and not the silly opinions from a media that didn't see this coming in 2016. They're trapped in an echo chamber they can't break out of. And you're going to love this next part because, of course, I always come up with data, don't I? Now, before I read Mr. Brad Parscale's tweets, I want you to know he's the campaign manager for Donald Trump. Take his data with a grain of salt. But the fact remains, you can deny everything that, that walkaway is saying. You can reject what you see right in front of your eyes. And you can even say, I don't trust Brad Parscale's data. Okay. Let me remind you of Jeff Van Drew. Remember him? Yeah, he was a Democratic congressman. He's a Republican now. They literally lost a congressman. That's how crazy the shift has become. Now, of course, Justin Amash, he quit. He became an independent. I want to be fair. There are people who defect from the right. Absolutely. But the major movements seem to be from left to right, not right to left or right to center. And I think the reason is most independents feel that the left has gone too far left. More independents feel that way than independents who feel that the right has gone too far right. But again, you can take Mr. Parscale's data with a grain of salt simply because, well, of course he's biased. He's working for the president. He wants these numbers to look like they're winning. And I think it's fair, but I also don't think he's making this up, especially when Gallup shows us something similar. Take a look at this. Arizona, the rally that just happened. Wow, Arizona. Big Phoenix rally. 67,516 tickets. 29,990 voters identified. 87% from AZ. 26% didn't vote in 2016. 18% were Democrats. Just like what Carlin, am I pronouncing her name wrong? The Medium Post from Carlin Borisenko. That's what she said, that she was a Democrat. She went to a Trump rally and realized how out of touch the Democrats are. But come on, I got more tweets from Mr. Parscale. In this one, he says, New Hampshire, 25.4% Democrats. I mean, that makes sense. New Hampshire's a blue state. So yeah, you've got a big portion of Democrats who have showed up for a Trump rally. And of course, there's still New Jersey. This was Jeff Van Drew's district. 158,632 requested tickets. 92,841 distinct signups. 73,482 voters. 10.4 didn't vote. And 26.3 were Democrats. This is in a blue state, New Jersey, heavy blue. Now, they're in Jeff Van Drew's district, which is supposed to be a Democrat district. And the dude flipped, and 26.3% of the people who came out were actually Democrats as well. To me, it's absolutely mind-boggling that the Democrats haven't course-corrected after losing so much support. And I'll tell you why. The Hill writes it. As of today, there is no centrist Democrat running for president in 2020. There just isn't. Even Pete Buttigieg, who's supposed to be the moderate, is still further left than Obama was. There's no centrist candidate. They're all leftist. Now, some are absolutely far left, but they're all leftists. They are. And the way they're campaigning, it's like they're worried about Twitter and not actual Americans. And that's why actual Americans are confused and leaving. I'm going to remind you all, and most of you know this, Labour in the UK, which is basically their Democrats, faced one of the worst defeats in nearly 100 years. I know it bears repeating, but we're headed in that direction. And Carlin said the same thing. Democrats have no idea what's ahead of them. I want to be careful because I always want to say, hey, hubris will be the downfall. So maybe I'm wrong. But this data from Gallup backs all of it up. The U.S. remained center-right ideologically in 2019. So how is it the case that all of these Democrats are trying to embrace far-left politics when the country leans center-right? Now, I think it's fair to criticize the Democrats as not typically being a leftist party, but today, according to the New York Times, the Democratic Party is further left than the average European political party. And European political parties are pretty far left. So if the U.S. is center-right, what do you think is going to happen? Well, you'll see stories like this. Trump wins the debate as Democrats explain why not one of them can beat him. You see, all of these Democratic candidates, not only do they embrace leftist and far left ideology, but they needed to convince everyone they were the right choice by saying, here's why Biden can't win. Here's why Bernie can't win. And then Bernie says, well, here's why Buttigieg can't win. Here's why Warren can't win. It was basically a none of us can win fest. Now, Bloomberg himself, I find this is absolutely hilarious considering, well, actually, let me show you this one first. Brett Baer on Dem Vegas debate, the biggest winner tonight, Donald Trump. I can't anymore, man. I'm just so confused as to why the Democrats haven't course corrected. They know that what they're saying is unpopular. They absolutely have to know. Are they that inept? Unfortunately, the answer might be yes. They're just insane. They have no idea what's happening in this country. They're saying crazy things. And in response, I kid you not, we're seeing the data from Gallup. People are quitting the Democratic Party. But I'll tell you, hey, for all his faults, at least Michael Bloomberg was able to recognize this. Quote, the real winner of the debate last night was Donald Trump. Mike Bloomberg told the crowd in Salt Lake City. I got to say, I am impressed. Bloomberg, who spent over $400 million to try and stop Donald Trump to run, to buy a seat on the debate stage and buy his way into this campaign, is one of the only Democrats who's admitting the debate last night was a dumpster fire. And Trump is walking away the winner without batting an eye, without countering any of their positions. He doesn't need to. You know, I love using ice cream analogies, but listen, if Donald Trump offered you chocolate ice cream, you'd be like, yeah, I like chocolate ice cream. Okay. It's not my favorite. Maybe it's rum raisin, right? Then the Democrats walk up with some weird spinach broccoli nonsense, and you're like, I'm not eating that. The choice is clear. If you're watching a bunch of people debate about which ice cream you get to eat and it's all weird, nasty flavors like asparagus chocolate, you're going to be like, no, thank you. Trump doesn't need to say anything. He simply needs to say, we got vanilla. And you're going to be like, yep. And that's what's happening. On the debate stage, you hear nonsense. You hear people tearing each other apart, ideas that make no sense. And Trump doesn't say a single word. And hey, how does the saying go? It's better to remain silent and appear stupid. It's better to remain silent and appear stupid than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Simply by saying nothing to these people, he ends up the winner because they're all nuts. But as I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, hubris will be your downfall. On the Squawk Box, famous pollster Frank Luntz said it's going to be a real battle between Bernie and Trump. Quote, this is going to be a brawl. It's going to be the ugliest election ever. I don't know if Frank Luntz is right, but I think it's fair to say Hillary Clinton had hubris in spades, and boy, did she fail and fail hard, and she will never get over it. Donald Trump, everyone thought he wasn't going to make it, and he did. So it may turn out that even though the Democrats are spiraling out of control and people are quitting the party, that Bernie Sanders does light up new voters. He does inspire older voters and people who maybe have given up on the party to come out for progressive values and present Trump with a real challenge. I think that's fair. You know why? Because Bernie is a populist. For all his faults and everything I can criticize him for, I think a populist has the best chance of beating Donald Trump, because Trump himself is a populist. It's basically just left or right. What's your pick? The elites are unable to inspire the masses, but Bernie Sanders has been. That's why he's winning the popular vote. In the end, however, I want you to consider the most important point. That data I showed you is wrong. Absolutely wrong. I showed you Gallup saying people quitting the Democratic Party and all that stuff. As the New York Times writer Bret Stephens says, quote, Trump's whisper network. What happens when the left cedes the free speech high ground? This is the New York Times finally acknowledging that by bashing and smearing and ragging on Trump supporters and Trump all day and night, you have pushed many of his supporters into hiding. So when you look at this data, how many people have quit the Democratic Party? 1%. How many people have left are no longer identifying as independent, now identify as Republicans? 2 to 3%. But how many of those Democrats were Democrat their whole lives and are now secretly Trump supporters and will never say, because they'll lose their jobs? You know, I know some high profile individuals who voted for Donald Trump who are hard lefties, famous, individuals, activists. And if I were to tell you, you'd be shocked. But no, I have to respect their privacy because of this, because their careers will be destroyed if anyone finds out. These are people who looked at the option in 2016 and said the choice between Trump and Hillary is a no-brainer. And today they're saying the same thing. The left has gone insane. Stick around for tonight. I've got more videos coming up at 6 p.m. at youtube.com/TimCastNews. Those will be fun as always. But tonight I'll be doing a podcast, presumably, with another huge story that I think is really, really fascinating. There are left-wing activists, long-standing diehard leftists, who are finally fed up with what the Democrats are doing, with what the left represents, and no longer want to be involved. It's going to get crazy. This is going to be one of the ugliest elections we have ever seen. Frank Luntz is certainly right about that. But I'll leave with just a couple more things. First, I really do mean it when I say I hope we can break some echo chambers. I don't think I know everything. There's probably some data that I missed that might offer up a counterpoint. And that's why it's always important for you guys to watch people other than me, especially left-leaning individuals. You can find that they're wrong or right, or I'm wrong or I'm right, whatever. The point is, expand your perspective. But also, really, share this if you do like it, because I think this one's particularly important. I know there are a lot of people who still to this day are probably on Twitter, at work, claiming to be on the left, and they secretly are not. Perhaps, as Trump's approval rating continues to climb and break records, you're going to see more Trump supporters completely willing to say that they support the president. And then the floodgates open and the Whisper Network becomes public. But until then, the Whisper Network is real. Who knows how many people secretly support the president and just won't say? That's one of the reasons he won in 2016. And now people are predicting a McGovern-type incident where Trump could even win 500, maybe 400 electoral votes, maybe 40 states. I guess we'll see. I'll see you all at 6 p.m. on the next channel, youtube.com/TimCastNews. Thanks for hanging out.